Welcome to the Brodart Tell Me More Summer Reads webinar. Today, two authors with two very different books will be sharing their stories with you. Our moderator, Susie Hawley, is a collection development librarian for Brodart. Susie has been a school media specialist, a professor of children's literature, a Newbery Committee member, and co-author of a children's literature textbook. She has over 20 years in collection development with Brodart specializing primarily in children's and young adult titles. So over to you, Susie.
Thank you so much, Elenita. We do have two wonderful authors today. Tiffany Jackson is the first one we'll hear from, Tiffany D. Jackson. I found out that there are other Tiffany Jacksons when I looked it up on the web. She will tell us about her debut middle grade book, Blood in the Water, which has a suspenseful murder mystery plot, and I read it in one sitting. You may know her popular young adult titles already. Tiffany's a filmmaker as well as an author. She graduated from Howard University with a BA in filmmaking and continued at New School for a master's in media studies. She currently lives in Brooklyn and in the South, but I really don't know where. She must tell us. She loves naps, cookies, cookie dough, and the beaches. I don't think she talks about naps or cookie dough in this book, but water and a beach play a major part. Please share this wonderful book with us, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for that intro, and thank you so much for having me. So to start off, first, I am introducing my first middle grade. As we talked, or as Susie mentioned, you probably know some of my YA titles. I mostly stick in the YA thriller horror genre. And I'm very nervous coming to you as a middle grade author, thriller author. There's not many thriller middle grades out there, or in recent years. But the truth is, I noticed that there weren't many, and I really wanted to write for that specific for kids in that grade group. Especially, I would see them as I was touring, reading some of my older titles, and wishing that I had something for their specific mindset. So with that, I just want to introduce you my first middle grade called Blood in the Water. It is about a Brooklyn girl named Kalani who, after her father's recent incarceration, is forced to spend a few weeks of her summer vacation at a family friend's home on the island of Martha's Vineyard, and that is an island off of Massachusetts, known for being a summer haven for the Black community since the end of slavery. She must navigate new waters of this Black upper class society with a beach backdrop, including dealing with the stuck-up kids she's sharing a home with. Until one day, a popular teen boy is found dead on the beach by the infamous bridge. Some people believe it's a shark attack, while others believe a murderer is on the loose. Kalani is determined to help her new friends solve the mystery, but discovers there's more to the island and the families who vacation there than meet the eye. Secrets are uncovered, and that could change even her own life. That is, if she makes it back to Brooklyn alive. I feel like I should say dun 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 behind it. But this was a bit of a challenging story for me to write. Like I said, there's not many true blue middle grade thrillers out there. So I had to dance on a fine line. It can't be too scary, but it can't be too corny. Can't be too mature, but can't be too childish. And I'm all about respecting my readers. I learned that there's a big difference between YA and middle grade. I feel like YA really talks about characters really learning about themselves versus middle grade, they're learning about the world. So that led me to really find a way for Kalani to sort of learn that lesson the best way possible is learning about the world, but also learning just how to be a kid. Now this book, Kalani is the main character of the story, but so is the setting. Martha's Vineyard is rich in Black history and beaches and nature and seafood. The story takes place in this town or section of the island called Oak Bluff, which is a historical Black community in the Summer Haven. It's been a refuge for free slaves since the 1600s. And honestly, the island is purely magical. I read like so many historical journals and letters by people who from there who would write to family members saying how just safe and free they felt there. And that feeling is still to this day. My family and I have been going to the island for years. I absolutely love it. And so it was fantastic to write this story. Um, some of the famous celebrities that actually own homes there, Barack and Michelle Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Spike Lee, David Letterman, Steven Tyler, Diane Sawyer, to name a few. And even though I've been going to the island plenty as I was growing up with my family, we would take the 4.5 hour drive from Brooklyn to Martha's Vineyard. In the summer of 2023, I went to the island not as a vacationer, but as an author to do research. I needed to look at the island from very much a 12-year-old girl's point of perspective. I also wanted to look at it as like an author, like, what are those trees over there? Where's the dune? Like, I was looking at it in a different light. I was also 17 weeks pregnant with my first child, the very one that gave me this cold you probably hear. So I treated myself to lobster rolls every day. I got to see so many old friends because honestly, going to Martha's Vineyard during the summer is like a big Black family reunion. The book in the book, Kalani interacts with some famous landmarks in Martha's Vineyard. There's the colorful gingerbread houses in the campgrounds, Inkwell Beach, which is known for being a famous Black beach, East Chop Lighthouse, the Flying Horse Carousel, which I think is the oldest in the country. But the main location, the one where the Popular Boy is found, is at this infamous beach known as the Jaws Beach. The Jaws Beach kind of connects Oaks Bluff to the next town over, which is Edgartown. It's called the Jaws Bridge because in Martha's Vineyard is where the infamous movie Jaws was shot back in 1974. Martha's Vineyard was eventually turned into Amityville Island for Steven Spielberg's monster horror film. And this June happens to be the 50th anniversary of Jaws. So if you happen to come to the island in Martha's Vineyard, you can go see the Jaws exhibit at the Martha's Vineyard Museum. You can see some behind the scene photos and props, and you can ask some of the locals because a lot of the locals remember filming and even working on set. But as I was saying, it's an infamous bridge that you can sort of jump off of. It's a pretty low bridge, so it's not like jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge. It's like jumping into water. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, did you jump off the bridge?" And it's sort of a tradition there. And it's low enough to water to jump, but high enough that you get like a rush. So, and I've jumped off the bridge a couple of times, but not while I was pregnant. Maybe I'll do it this year when I go on tour, which this book comes out July 1st. So hopefully some people will see me there jumping. I don't know. So yeah, basically Martha's Vineyard is very much a main character in the story because it's a place where families gather, where kids can just be kids, riding bikes, visiting arcades, eating lobster flavored ice cream, and solving some murder mysteries. So I hope you enjoy. Yeah, that's it.
That's great. I can't imagine that anybody wouldn't enjoy this book. It's so compelling too. But I do have to ask you, is it really true that lobster ice cream tastes like lobsters?
It has a weird buttery taste. I cannot explain it. Like some lobster ice creams have like bits of lobster in it, and it's just
Ugh.
kind of like that's gross. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
think
does.
so too.
Yeah, it's nasty. I don't know how else to describe it. Some people like it.
But when I read about it in the book, I'm glad you brought it up because I wondered that. Um, how you talked a little bit about this, but that is honestly quite a dramatic change to go from YA to middle grade literature. And I wondered as you were writing it, well, I think did someone ask you, you said that you really wanted to write for that age group, but did your editors ask you to write a middle grade book?
A lot of people have been sort of like flirting the idea with me, saying that, there were kids looking for that type of content, honestly, that kids were looking for more horror in that specific age group. They were looking for more horror, looking more thrillers, and so they were gravitating towards those kind of like thrilling reads. Think of kids who love like Alan Gratz books. Like they were looking for those type of like, engaging but yet thrilling type of stories that like really like throw you into the action. And though like I'm not as action-packed as Alan Gratz books, I will say that I can understand where they're coming from.
Well, they're really, I mean, it was terrific. So many things I learned. For instance, I had absolutely no idea that Martha's Vineyards was really a gathering point for the wealthy Black families of the era. I'd always heard about it as a really wealthy white community, but that was so fascinating. And the
Yeah,
in-town
yeah.
part, I mean, I really learned so much. And let me go back a little bit to what I just started to ask you about the YA and the middle grade debut. Did your editors have to ask you to change a lot of things, or did you just realize as you were writing it, that
There were some things there were some things that changed that I didn't realize that were too adult-like in a sense. For instance, there was a party and kids had like red cups in hand, and the kids didn't have the red cups, but it was the idea that even drinking was even happening around this party was, a no-no. Um, and I think it's hard to balance that, right? Because I think maturity is very subjective. Sometimes people mature, or some kids mature quicker just based on their surroundings. I was born in Brooklyn, and so, naturally, I took the train by myself at a very young age versus some people weren't even allowed to cross the street. So, it really is dependent. So that's why I felt like, this book had to teeter on, it was a very delicate dance, I suppose you could say.
wasn't that interesting that you just brought that up about not crossing the street when that was a big, big part of the conclusion of the book, which helped save Kalani in the end? Because her husband, I mean, her cousin, who had been really terrible to her all along, um, realized when it was noticed. I don't want to tell too much because I don't want to ruin the end.
Yeah, don't tell too much.
No, but her mother, they
Yeah,
said,
that
oh no,
that
she would never do that because her mother wouldn't even let her cross the street by herself in Brooklyn. So it was funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
You told a real cute story about how you actually decided to become a writer. Do you know what I'm alluding to here?
Oh, you mean how I discovered that I was a writer? Probably
Yeah.
yes. So when I was little, I used to practice like writing my handwriting, like in those like, big like spaced out like letters and block letters and stuff like that. And I remember when I was practicing my letters, I realized if I put letters together, it would spell a word. And the first word I spelled on my own was nose. And I immediately took it to my mom and I said, I am a genius and I'm going to be a writer. And that was it. That was just basically, and I was 4, and I was like, yes, this is what I was meant to do. And, my mom looked at me out like I was crazy, of course. But yeah, that was basically the beginning of my journey.
That's really fun. Now whenever I read a lot about you being a filmmaker also, are you
Mhm.
still doing a lot of film and TV work, or I don't know how you
No,
balance
actually, I haven't
it.
really done a lot of film and TV work, and that's okay. I think mostly because this has been a dream for a really long time, and I did film and television for about 15 years before I became a full-time author. And if you ask anyone from my past, from my elementary school teachers to my high school teachers, they all knew I was going to be an author.
Mm.
Like every single one of them, they all knew. And even if you come to any of my events, like one of my teachers is going to be there because they always support. I had the same teacher for second, fifth, and sixth grade, Miss Millie Fulford,
Wow.
and Miss Fulford actually is the one who like really engaged with me in terms of like she would make a little cubby so if there was free time. She knew I wanted to write, so she would make a little cubby for me at a desk. Um, and in fact, like this is like a full circle moment for my too. In second grade, there was a Scholastic book fair, and she took my hand, walked me over to a specific table, and said, "You were going to love these books." And they had just come out for the first time, and it was R.L. Stein's Goosebumps series, and it
Oh,
was the Monster Blood, I think, was the first one. And I bought those books with like a little bit of money that I had, and that was like my beginning love of reading. And R.L. Stein actually blurbed this book. He said, wait, hold on. He said that it was waves of suspense more chilling than a threatening ocean. Don't miss this one. So it's just amazing to kind of like come full circle that this is the person that made me want to write, that now I'm at like his at his publishing house, and then he's blurbed the book. So it's really an amazing feeling.
That's great. And Sherry, didn't that make you feel wonderful when she talked about how important the teacher was in her life?
Absolutely. But the teachers and librarians in my life played a big role in me as just in a survival mode, because my mother died when I was 12.
Oh,
And so I just immersed myself in books, and I had an amazing support of teachers and librarians that helped me through that. So I understand completely having wonderful teachers in your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, it makes us both feel good because we were both Sherry and I were teachers. But
Oh,
now let's turn to
nice.
Sherry. And this is a completely different genre because this is a real live picture book. And Sherry Merritt has gifted us with a delightful picture book that reimagines the 12 days of Christmas and embodies her overflowing love and enthusiasm for animals and the natural world. Sherry, who is a member of the Choctaw Nation, even though she does not look one bit like that. We talked about that the other day, and she said her sister looks like a Choctaw princess, but she looks like the other side of her family. She's lived in many states. She was born and raised in Texas. She spent 20 years being a teacher and librarian in Pennsylvania, and now she lives in Walla Walla, Washington. She loves reading, writing, butterflies, magic, and spending time with her granddaughter. She's also very busy making library visits. Please tell us about the 12 Days of Summer, Sherry.
Thank you for having me. The 12 Days of Summer is published by Muddy Boots, and I like to share that Muddy Boots specializes in nature books for children. And I couldn't have done this without Thomas Hilly, who has this beautiful illustrative style of the woodcut design, which I think lends itself very well to the animals. So thank you to both of those people and man Thomas Hilly. And here are a couple of the early illustrations in the book. And so the 12 Days of Summer is focusing on animal behaviors in the summer. And it's got the counting aspect because it's building on the very first line is on the first day of summer, we looked around to see, and I have little binoculars that I make my stories interactive if I can because I was a librarian pretty much from K to 12. And so the line is on the first day of summer, we looked around to see a black bear in an oak tree. Grr! And so the kids, it's just so fun to see how delighted they are to interact with the book. And on each of the big illustration pages, there's a little animal that the kids can look for. And Susie, you saw that that was a chipmunk, and so the kids like looking for the little chipmunk. So there are the 12 animals in the series, but I can't really talk about the inspiration without talking about the companion book, which came first, and that's the 12 Days of Winter. And I realized that as a teacher, that teacher librarian, that some of the kids, there a lot of kids celebrate Christmas and a lot of kids don't. And I just love the 12 Days of Christmas song, but I thought, wow, do they really connect with Lords a Leaping and Maids a Milking and a partridge in a pear tree? And I'm thinking, no, not really. They might not. So I thought, why not make a winter book, a celebratory winter book, introducing kids to what animals in North America are doing during wintertime? And so I came up with 12 Days of Winter. And in this book, the first line is on the first day of winter, we looked around to see a moose munching in the meadow. And then it goes through, the animals of winter. And so the bear obviously isn't going to be in this book. And that's why I had to highlight the bear in the 12 Days of Summer. And so I want kids also to connect with the natural world and nature. I love hiking. I love to be out in nature. You mentioned the butterflies. Layla and the Butterflies was my first nature book, and it's about monarchs. And you also mentioned my Choctaw heritage, and actually that book, Cloud Artist, um, Cloud Artist in Choctaw and English kind of started out my career, and it celebrates my Choctaw heritage. So it's been a very interesting journey for me. And now I never thought I would have a series, and a 12 Days of Autumn comes out this fall, 12 Days of Spring comes out in the spring. And so all of the animals, that are highlighted in the book, the kids can say, "Oh, I've seen one of those," or maybe not, and maybe they learn about America as animals of America as they kind of read through my series. So you can see there that it's 5 rating raccoons, and I can't barely carry a tune in a bucket. So I usually kind of read it, sing song it, but 5 rating raccoons, 4 shy bobcats, and then through the different animals. And then I wanted to do activities for the book, so there's a bunch of activities on my website, but the learning part, that I want kids to have too is, the seasons and kindergartners. I had kindergarten through 3rd grade at my elementary school. And, the kindergartners are like sponges. So, talking about what do animals do, in the different seasons. And of course, there's not going to be insects or reptiles out in the wintertime, especially, because of the cold and where are they? And so these were a lot of discussions that I would have with kids. And I just love to do my programs. As you said, I have a lot of library programs. I have a school visit on Monday, but I created tracks and SCAT program to go along because I miss teaching and I love to go to the libraries and do programs or to the schools, and it's so much fun because it's like being a grandmother. I taught for 20 years. I had to do all the stuff that teachers had to do. But in this instance, I get to go in and have fun and then go bye, and I don't have to grade any paper. So it's a lot of fun for me. It's like being a grandmother teacher. And but there are animals that, some of the kids have never, they don't know the names. And I just love to talk about possums and raccoons and bunnies. There's a snowshoe hare and the book, and it's the coat is changing, and so it opens up a lot of discussion. Especially with parents who have a lot more time, maybe. So this my granddaughter asked me, I'm going to her preschool today. I did a reading with her of the 12 Days of Winter last fall at her preschool, and she was just so excited. I was having kind of a little laryngitis problem. She just started reading the whole book to her fellow kids, and I just sat there and I let her go. So I'm going tonight with her, and she's like, "Oh, Nanny, are we reading 12 Days of Summer?" And I was like, "No, we're just going as normal people tonight." So it was, maybe she's going to be a librarian because she loves books too. So it's been quite the journey. And just thank you for having me because I'd love to talk about my books. 12 Days of Autumn. It's a turkey trotting down the trail. And then the spring book comes out in the spring. And I'm having the best time doing all of this.
I hope everybody saw the little chipmunk in every one of these pictures because it's so much fun to try to find it.
Yeah, in the 12 Days of Winter, it's a blue jay. And the 12 Days of Autumn, um, let's see if I can find it. Sometimes you can see really well. Maybe not. It's a turtle. This is just the
Love.
manuscript. And then at the end, you can kind of see why I wanted a turtle. It's autumn. I'm not going to give it away, but animals prepare for winter in different ways. So, and then in the 12 Days of Spring, it's going to be a little bunny, of course, Easter, spring, you think, and then at the end, you get a little reveal about what the bunny is doing. So, it's all about seasons and animal behaviors. And again, I just love Thomas's illustrations. that I loved his, and we were talking about animals a lot of the time. And finally said, Thomas, you have been so involved in helping me with the animals that he actually became co-author of the last two books because I felt like his input was so important because he sees the stories from a kind of a different point of view. And together, I think we made the books better. So I was glad to add him as a partner.
How did you two ever find each other? Did your publisher?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's a very interesting question because I met Thomas through my first publisher. The Cloud Artist is published by the Roadrunner Press, and we did at the Roadrunner Press we did the Book of Untold Stories, and that's a book where I give them like how to go about the writing process with visual prompts, and I gave Roadrunner Press what I wanted to have seen in these visual prompts, and he was doing another book for Roadrunner Press. And so we were matched at the Roadrunner Press for the Book of Untold Stories. So when I jumped over and did Layla and the Butterflies, the Cloud Artist was illustrated by my cousin, who I did not know was my cousin. We found out later we were cousins. We're both Choctaw. And so she was doing Layla and the Butterflies illustration. I showed them her work at Muddy Boots. And then I ended up bringing Thomas along because I loved his woodcut design. So both of them worked with me previously at Roadrunner Press. And then I recommended them to Muddy Boots. So that usually does not happen, I will say. So it's been quite the journey for those two, too.
Oh, that's great. Well, you mentioned that you actually have some activities, that you always do a lot of activities. And I just wanted people to know that you do have on your website 100 activities that teachers can use, teachers and librarians can use. Now,
And you would probably understand why. It's because when you are a teacher librarian, you're creating activities all the
right.
time, and it's
Yep.
so time consuming. And I
Yep.
thought, who best to create all these hands-on activities or handouts that are dealing with different, from counting to what's on a title page. So I thought, I'm going to do it myself. But when we started this path of doing these nature books, and I've been hiking, and I thought, oh goodness, what a great activity to tie in would be animal tracks. So
Mm.
Thomas did 20 almost actual size animal tracks, mini posters, just like this. They're free on my website. And I'm not going to say what they are, but these are all animals that are the main focus of my 4 books for the season, and you can probably guess, but I have so much fun with this has been my most popular program. And last summer when I was doing it, a grandmother came up to me and said, I don't know who had more fun, me or the kids. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want. I want everyone to be involved and up and active, and I think I used to do a skull activity book where I brought in skulls for my third graders and they would identify them, and I read the skull alphabet book. Oh yes, I loved being a librarian. So in a way I'm just kind of living it in a different way. And then I can't this is hard for me to show on Zoom, but at my activities, I don't have them identify just tracks, 20 tracks. I have them identify 6 scat models. So these are scientific replica of 2 scats. I have 6, and these represent the 2 books that I have out. And it's interesting because I say use my head as a comparison so you can just think about that these these are poop of 2 very large animals, and the kids just love poop. So I don't know. I find it fun. It's kids love poop.
They do. They do. It's so crazy. Yep, I know they do. That's why all the poop books sell so well.
Yes,
Yep, I
absolutely.
So anyway, one final question for you. Did being a teacher and a librarian have any impact on your becoming an author?
Absolutely. And that's one reason I do all these activities. And there's so much learning to be involved with all of my books. I would teach actually pie. What is the purpose of the book, and just persuade, inform, or entertain. I mean, those were the three reasons, that
Yeah.
a book comes into being. And fortunately for me, I have a book for each one of those letters. But even the Choctaw book it's in the Choctaw language. I wanted kids to see the language, and through that book, The Cloud Artist, there are instances of historical reference, to the Trail of Tears, the stickball game. So in all of my books, there's something to be learned, and I just feel like it doesn't have to be just learning; it can be entertaining too. But I just think for a teacher, it's so much easier to read a book and then have so much to talk about.
Mhm.
So, and most of my books have interaction if I can, for sure.
That's great. Now tell me this, do any of you all have questions? Do you two have questions for each other? And even Elenita, do you have a question for anyone?
I don't, but very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, the books are both delights. And by the way, they're both on the Broad Art website. They're both considered, what is the word I want to say? It's high demand,
Yes.
which is always a good thing, right? And
Yes.
even, Tiffany's hasn't even been published yet.
Yes.
Yes, it comes out in July. I'm kind of jealous that you have all these like cool activities, Sherry. I'm like, how do I do that? Yeah.
It's much easier to do with picture books,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, I can understand that. But yes.
But I'm actually going to read your book because I remember, and Tiffany, I think, would uh, also kind of connect with this. I just remember kids coming in, Mrs. Merritt, there was this book and there was this girl on the cover and she was doing this. And it was blue. And I would say, I think that. So your cover is great. And after hearing Susie talk about it, I have to read it. And I love that it was in one sitting because that's how I usually,
Yeah.
consume a book. And so
Yeah.
you'll probably see a review for me on your book because
Oh, well, awesome. Thank
yeah,
you.
I love mystery and thrillers. I actually write whodunits to go along with some of my books for presentations. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. Well,
short
I'm really
whodunits.
excited to like buy
It's,
your books for my
yeah.
daughter.
So it's very
How old
nice
is
to meet
she?
you here, Tiffany.
Tiffany, how old's your daughter?
She is 15 months old.
Oh,
So she's a
Oh,
little, walking around, little toddler.
oh, fun. Wow.
Germobile, but yes.
Oh, yeah. But wait until she goes to school.
Oh, great.
I taught kindergarten for a while and I was sick every day for the first year.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
No, I mean, I went to school, but they all had something for me to catch.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This was wonderful. It was just very different, two very different books, but really excited about both of them. And since they're hot demand, we want to make sure that we keep them in stock and that people are buying them and enjoying them. And Sherry, you have on your website activities. So if people would look you up by looking you up through your first and last name, is that how they would find it?
it's just sherrymerritt.com.
Okay, good, 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 good. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording and we are going to end the webinar.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody. It was
you.
a
Thank
pleasure.
you.